Retailing hasn't taken off in this country is not because of lack of broadband connectivity. I think that's a one big myth, or the lack of growth or the pace of growth of internet users in this country. I think that's not the reason. There has to be a reason for people to subscribe to broadband. There has to be a reason for people to buy a personal computer. There has to be a reason for people to now buy what Apple calls the iPad. If there's not enough, why didn't iPhone catch up in this country? Because there are not enough localized applications for the iPhone. It's doing very well in the US, it's doing very well in Europe, but did not do so well in India because total lack of applications, and that's based on more and more applications. So it's true for iPad. iPad is going to totally dependent on content providers and application providers. If there are not enough of those in this country, I don't think so a tablet like iPad would succeed. So we have to create an ecosystem of distributors of electronic content and e-tailers, and that is where we have to play a role. We can't replace the traditional channels. The other myth, which was about e-commerce, why it's not taking off, because it's in conflict with the retail channels, the traditional retail channels of the distributor, of the dealer and all. I think that's another great myth. You have to look at e-commerce, you have to look at e-tailing as another channel which actually expands the market and reaches a consumer who will not go and buy otherwise. So I think the vision which we have to set for ourselves, that how to get more and more real-time, real-world retailers on board onto e-tailing. Now, Future Bazaar, like Kishore, Walmart.com is probably the fastest growing e-commerce site globally. What did they do right? And what are we doing which needs a correction? I think there has to be a level of maturity in the market before e-tailing and e-commerce can take off. We have yet to see that inflection point. Now, it's not that people were not buying goods when the large retail format was not here. People were still buying from the mom and pop shops and whatever little small neighborhood supermarkets in 500 or 600 square feet area were there. So why is it that people haven't caught on to the e-tailing or e-commerce platform here? Now, another myth which is there, that people don't want to use the plastic. I think it's a great myth. People don't want to use plastic on the net. I think if there is a good enough, attractive offer, right, all of us would use their plastic and swipe our cards on the net. People more than willingly do it for Amazon sitting out of India. But why won't they do it for A1 books? The offerings are totally different. The technology employed is totally different. If you look at Jeff Bezos, I think he invested right through the 10, 12 years he's been in existence on technology. The user interface and the user experience has to be of a very superior quality for you to offset his real life experience. You cannot replace the sensory pleasures of shopping, because you can feel it, you can wear it, you can try it, you can see the vibrant colors when you're buying apparel or you're buying a car, but you can't reproduce the same experience on the net. So how do you replace that sensory advantage which the real world has in the virtual world? Is by creating an extremely superior experience and a totally flawless experience from his doing, he's logging on, doing, going to the cart and paying out. The amount of glitches which you see when you have to buy a simple air ticket today, how many would you experience that in the first attempt, right? There was an analysis that almost 98% of the people can't get the ticket in their first attempt. It gets timed out. So the experience which a person has on the net is very, very different from what he has. If he just gives a call to the Jet Airways call center and he has a ticket in a jiffy. But if he has to log in, it's a marathon task for him to first find the right site, whether he's on the right site, is he not on one of those affiliates of DGM or whatever you have, or where is he? Until he finds it, it's already 10 or 15 minutes past, and then he tries to figure it out. And no site is similar. So his experience on Go Air as opposed to Jet Airways, as opposed to SpiceJet, as opposed to anything is so different that he gets confused. But he's trying to travel from between Delhi and Bombay. He just wants a simple ticket, the cheapest value. Right? But he has to learn the navigation and get used to every site. So by the time he reaches the second or third site, he gives up. He picks up the phone and talks to the Jet Airways or anyone, Spice or whatever, the choice he has made to do it. I think there's lots which needs to be done in India about e-tailing and e-commerce. The only successful e-commerce thing is travel. As all of you know that almost 60% of the ticketing is now done through online, whether be it the online travel agencies like Make My Trip, Yatra, Clear Trip, etc., or the airline websites. But I think that revolution came not because people got familiar with the net. I think the value which was being delivered by the low-cost carriers. So if people will see value in retailing on the net, people will come. Now the whole problem in this country is that no e-tailer or e-commerce person has built his own backends in terms of, not in terms of technology backends, but in terms of supply chain management. That's critical if you want to cut costs and give value to your customer. It's important that you play around the entire cost structure of the supply chain before you can pass on that benefit to the customer. The typical retailer, as what the vision of this seminar is, that we need to set that vision today. The typical retailer, how he looks at e-tailing, is that he is more concerned about branding, because he's told that anyone who is 16-year-old or 35-year-old doesn't read the newspaper, doesn't actually see the TV. So he has to get, and he's on the net, so how do we get a presence? So they're more than happy to have a presence without really looking at the experience. If you saw, they have to have a presence because everyone tells them that you should have a presence on the net, and that's ruining the prospects of the internet. If the big brands don't pay attention to technology, they cut corners on the net, and they look at only as branding, then not only that they're devaluing the brand in the future, but are actually getting people off the net as far as experience is concerned. So if anyone who has ambitions of getting onto e-commerce, I think it's a long haul. And if you're setting a vision, I think it's going to be 2010 and beyond. Right? I would guess that the inflection point on e-commerce in this country is good 10 years away. Whether we like it or not, so people have to experience that. I only hope and wish that it jumps into the next era of e-tailing and skips the large retail format, which may happen because real estate and infrastructure costs in this country are exorbitant. There is not enough investment coming into logistics and supply chain management infrastructure to actually deliver value, which a large format retailing should be able to. But we, in the internet business, have that opportunity to race ahead of the large retail format retailing in this country. What it requires is big time investment.